Refinishing your stairs can be scary. Drum roll, please. But today I'm going to show you just how easy and affordable it is to turn a mess like this into a beautiful centerpiece in your home. That is about as perfect as I can hope to get. All of the products used in today's video are available for purchase at Lowe's.com. So in order to build yourself some new stairs, obviously, you need new stairs. Now this is a CALI Stair tread, all right? It comes with an integrated nosing. The idea is we're gonna have to glue it down. So we're gonna be using pressure sensitive glue. You gotta get yourself a Stair tread measuring tool, all right? And you're gonna wanna get one of these bad boys. This is designed so that you can put your weight on and push that tread into the pressure sensitive adhesive. That way we don't have to use any fasteners to finish off that and get a nice, clean, sexy look. In addition to this, we're gonna do a lot of building. So there's two ways you can make a stair. You can cut the nosing or you can fill it in. I like to fill it in, so you're gonna need some plywood. Combination of some 3/8, some 1/2 inch, some 5/8. You're gonna need a little HDF, okay? High density fiber. This comes pre-primed and you can use this as your riser material. And we're going to be installing all these products with a staple gun. This is a great little tool. It's actually a 2-in-1. It's a staple gun and a brad nailer. Now, of course, you need a measuring tape and we're gonna need some baseboard trim. I like wood because whatever damage you do to this, you can fill it and sand it back to smooth and then paint and make it look flawless. You wanna use wood, not the MDF. Yes, it's more affordable, but it always shows all the imperfections of wherever you put in a nail. You gotta get yourself a square. In addition to all these minor little hand tools, you're going to need some power tools. You're going to need a 12-inch chop saw, preferably have something that's a sliding tool so that when you're cutting your treads, you get a perfect line start to finish. And you're also going to need a table saw. You're going to be ripping your trims down. You're going to be ripping your plywood. You're going to be ripping your flooring. You're going to be cutting and ripping even your stair tread. If you follow this video and go one step at a time, we're going to take you from ugly, which is what I got now, to absolute perfection. Before we install a single stair, we prep. And this can separate a pro looking finish from disaster. So in my case, because I'm capping the stairs and the risers, the only thing I really need to prep is the stringers. Now these stringers are 50 years old, which means they were painted with oil-based paint. They're not so old that they have lead in them, so they're not dangerous. So we're just gonna give them a quick scuff. Next, we're gonna get everything all vacuumed up and then use a little degreaser to clean up the sides of those treads once and for all. I just don't know how dirty your house is until you use a degreaser. If you had carpet, make sure you pull out every single staple. There's always one more staple. Now they're clean and dry, we're ready to paint the stringers. And painting, I mean primer, because I have an oil-based gloss. If you have a latex, there's no need to bother doing any paint work right now. You're gonna wanna go straight to the next step, which is to do the patching. If you're not sure, grab a little bit of acetone, put it on your rag, give it a wipe, and if nothing comes off, it's oil-based. If you see the paint color on your rag, then you've got a latex. All right, here we go. Now, this is oil, so the way we work with oil is always bottom up. So you start at the bottom, and then you drag it up. And the reason we do this is to catch all the drips. Latex, you work the other way around. Because it drips so much, you drag the brush until there's no more paint left in it. This is not a finished paint job. We're just using a little bit of chemistry here to make sure that our new paint will bond with the old paint. Now, on this particular build, I'll be building out the risers to come flush with the nosing, and then adding another layer of plywood on the stairs. But knowing that means I don't have to be too exact with my cuts. We have holes here. We're not going to fill those with our plastic wood until after the transition primer is dried overnight. Okay, right now we're gonna just talk about some touch-up work, and we got two different kinds of product here. I'm using wood filler, okay? Now this product here is amazing for filling deep holes. This is the benefit, because this one, you can push it in there nice and tight, and then leave a little residue, and that is designed to be sanded off. And I'm gonna fill up right in front of that nosing on all of these stairs. All these gaps here are gonna be filled up with a trim, and it runs about 1.25 inches. The downside of this product is it is textured, and it does need to be sanded back pretty vigorously, okay? The Dryadex comes in for all the smaller repairs. We can take a healthy serving, and when this turns white, it's ready to sand and then paint. You can see all the texture in this paint. And that's not from my paint job, that's from all the years of abuse. So we're just gonna go over and above. We're gonna resurface as much of this as is needed. If your stairs are in great shape, then maybe you don't have to do the whole surface. But for me, this is a great time for overkill. This stuff sands really easily. It's gonna look like a brand new piece of wood when we're done. Because it's a custom staircase built on site, the depth of the nosing is a little bit different on every stair. So I've got a bunch of plywood cut at 1/2 inch and some at 5/8. We're taking a piece of 1/2 inch, And another piece of 1/2 inch, and hopefully coming right and flush. If we're not right flush, we've always got the option to add a piece of 5/8 to get a proper build out. We're gonna use our Metabo crown stapler, 1.25 inch crown staples. And this is a mechanical fastener that is designed to hold long enough to let the adhesive actually do the job. We're gonna take our caulking gun, and we're using PL Premium. If you want to, you can get the 400 version. It's a little milder as far as initial grip strength, but because we're using fasteners, you can get away with it. This product here, the PL, you have to wipe it up with mineral spirits right away. So if you're gonna use it with finished surfaces around, you could get it on your shoes, on your hands. You can make a real mess. Within 5 minutes, you can't clean it off. If you want a little more mercy, get the 400 version. We're not looking for anything massive, okay? It's just a thin bead. We don't need 3,000 fasteners. We're gonna pull out tight. Top and bottom. Let me just get a little bit of glue on here so that when we put in our staples, we're stapling close enough to that glue strip that we get a good compression. And that is the goal. Lift it over and up, split the gaps on each side. The reason I got you to get the stapler is because we're gonna be coming back with a piece of white hardboard, which is only 1/8 of an inch thick. And you can't install that with brad nails, okay? You gotta have a staple gun. So this has an adjustment on the depth set. And so you can play around with that a little bit, and you can make it deeper or shallower to get it right where you want it. The point is this: we're gonna install it at a certain time and in a certain place that allows you to not have to fill any holes. But we still wanna make a nice compression on it so that you don't have anything coming loose over time. At this point, it's rough carpentry. Look at the gaps I have on the side. It's so I can get in here with my fingers and I can manipulate, I can work. We're just trying to build it out, create some compression. We just want to have something that's relatively solid to the feel when you step on a stair and maybe you kick the riser and it doesn't feel hollow. That's all we're looking for here. First flight of stairs is done. Now we jump on the second. Before we get into cutting and sizing the actual finished riser, we're going to take a minute here, do all the sanding and priming. Dry decks and wood filler sand really smooth and real easy, so you don't need a lot of pressure. The more pressure you use, the more you're likely to cause bumps and humps, okay? And of course, with anything that's gonna be painted, there's room for touch-ups. If you miss something, it's not the end of the world. Goal here is to get to as close to perfection as possible. Bottom line, whenever you're making something old look new, you gotta invest a lot of time in your prep work. Whew. Silky smooth. Let's vacuum, and then we can prime. This is a shellac-based primer. It is the best primer protection available on the market. Shake it until you hear that ball rolling around. Shake it until your arm gives out. Switch sides, do it again. Because in my experience, this product doesn't spray as nice as other spray paints on the market. Okay, and so you really want to have it sprayed up. Now everything here, be from a distance, move pretty quick. You're better to give it a light shot and then leave it alone and then come back and touch it up. If you hit the same spot too much, this will drip up, okay? It dries up in 15 minutes if you do a nice light application. If you put too much product on or do heavy application, it doesn't flatten out, it looks wrinkly, okay? So the reason we incorporated a landing in this staircase is because we have such a thing as building code, and this whole project is done on a permit and I'm gonna get inspected, which means the step from down here on the floor to here, because this is 36 by 36, is irrelevant. Whatever that is, it's a separate staircase. From here to that landing is one staircase. So every step from here going up, right up to the finish, has to be exactly the same within 1/8 of an inch or so. We're gonna add a 1/2 inch plywood on here and on every single step. And then on this landing, so that's perfect. And then we're adding a 1/2 inch on every single step, because up here, we're gonna be putting 3/4 inch hardwood. If I'm gonna raise 3/4 from the original, which all pass code, then I've gotta get this 3/4 up. So I'm adding 1/2 inch plywood, and then our stair tread is actually 1/4 inch. So when I'm finished, I'm gonna have a 1/2 inch material plus a 1/4 inch material, exactly the same. So every step on this whole staircase will be identical. That means I passed my final inspection, and I want this plywood to come about 1/8 of an inch past the nosing so that my new riser will come up into it. And then when I glue and staple that on, this will transfer load into the riser, which is glued to this. That's my plan, but I can't cut these risers until I have all the landings in, because I have to put the landing in and the flooring on the landing. then I have a starting point to measure my riser up to. Now, we've already cut and dry fit, and there's my 1/8 inch overhang. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna screw this down, and I'm gonna be careful not to screw too close to the edge, but at the same time close enough. Sink them till they're flush or below the surface of the plywood. All right, we're in. Beautiful. Well, that one's done. Let's hit the other one. So here's my PL. I'm just gonna gently lay this into the adhesive. Nice and tight to my nosing edge here. Now I'm just tightening up the outside perimeter. That's good for now. We'll let that set up for a few hours before we come back and put the last couple screws in. So when this staircase was built, it was built with the intention of being a builder staircase. They have the same rise and run. Great. It's nailed from the backside. Who cares? It's going to get covered in carpet. And that was the point, right? Everybody knew it was getting covered in carpet. So all of the angles and details and perfection didn't have to exist because it's going to have underpad and carpet stapled all up. But when I'm building now, I'm building this. And I've got a huge gap. I am anything but square. A lot of these steps, the bottom of the riser is actually kicked out. And that's going to be ugly. So if I just laminate, I'm going to have the same effect. So when you look down the side of the staircase, it's going to look like this as a riser. I want perfectly square. You see the difference here? Look how dramatic that is. I have got to make that disappear. My solution here is this. We've got flooring. We've got risers. We're going to have a plywood because I need a new gluing surface. I can't put an adhesive on an old adhesive. That's bad practice. They bond together. They might lift the old adhesive off and then your stairs are dangerous. This riser, I want to install flush on the bottom and then square so that I have this nice 90, 90, 90, 90 action going on. And the only way that we can do that is if we glue the bottom of the riser in, stick our square on it, and then shim the back in the adhesive until it gets fully square. We've got to do that in multiple locations across every one of these steps. If you don't start square, you won't possibly finish square. And you won't possibly finish with a result that you're going to be happy with, okay? Having one of these little trusty squares is vital here. Make sure that you've got angles, and if you do, we're going to cut the risers first to solve that problem. We're going to cut them long enough so they come just about to the top of that step and a little bit down, so that when I do add my plywood, and I've got a riser sitting here, I've got room for the plywood to be short or long, knowing that the stair tread itself will be set into that riser, and any gaps, whether it's this way or whatever, I've got lots of mercy here. First goal here, measure the height of every one of these risers. 2, the actual dimension of the stair, minus 1/8 of an inch because they're rounded and we just want to have a little mercy. Knowing that we're starting with flooring and then riser here, so we get a nice clean finish. One thing I'm learning about these custom builder stairs is that I can't trust the width because they're bowed. I can't trust the angle of the riser because they're out. I can't trust that the steps have been routed in even level. So everything comes into question. So I've got to build in mercy to every decision I make. So our first step is going to be to cut all of the heights, and we're going to number the back of it according to the stair. Then we can come back and get really detailed with the actual dimension. So now we got the height of a riser sorted out, and they're all cut and numbered outside according to our stair. So now we have to deal with the stringers. Now how square is that to the step? Because it will create gaps. And on this side, we're in really good shape here. Like that's almost perfect, right? And I can deal with that with caulking. At the stair location is where it's always at the narrowest, so that's good. So we're gonna measure at that location. On the other side, however, that's about as ugly as it gets. You can see even the build out is opening up almost 1/4 inch on every stair. That is crazy. First thing we're gonna do, guys, we're gonna set up the left angle and the right angle, which were somewhat consistent. We're gonna measure off and duplicate it, and then we can take this back and double check how it's gonna finish before we commit all of that material. So you can see, as a square scenario, that's 90. So what we wanna do is release this, get it out of the pit, because all the saws, they have like a little dent in it, and you can go, and it locks in by itself. So you lift it and get it out of the lock. We wanna get our blade down here, where it's starting from 0, and right up here, we're gonna finish at that 1/4 inch, which is right there actually. Okay, so over 7 inches. We go from 0 to 0. That's at 2 degrees. When I'm on a stair and I've got a 1/4 inch gap at the top of that step, I'm translating that gap by going like this. On a 2 degree angle on my saw, I'm gonna go from contact to a 1/4 inch gap. We're gonna lock that. Now that's gonna guarantee it stays at 2 degrees. And what do you think a 1/4 inch going to an 1/8 inch does? 2 degrees would become...
I have no idea.
1 degree. So half the gap, half the angle, over the same distance. So then the right side should be right here. Now we can go in and double check our template. That's about as close as you're possibly gonna get. And then over here, the angle's on the other side. Maybe even a little aggressive for that hole, but yeah, maybe we'll go just a little bit less than 1 degree. This is 2 degrees. This one, I'm gonna go like 0.8 degrees, which is just like moving that needle to the other side of that line, and that's it. Now, before we go and do the rest of the staircase, let's go and confirm that what I just did works, because you don't want to do all these 12 cuts and then come back and find out if you did it right. Close the legged door. That is about as perfect as I can hope to get. Now I know what I'm doing is going to work. Time to just do the other steps. All right, so now we take all these in, we dry fit them all, make adjustments if we need them. I think some of these are going to be just a hair long, which is kind of my intention, because it's so much easier to fix a problem by cutting it than by stretching it. So when you're doing this, if it's tight, you got to measure both sides. So am I tight here on that? Yeah, I am. Okay, so not bad. We are going to be within the 98th percentile on every one of these steps. Perfect. That's why God invented caulking. So now we've confirmed all of our risers. Sexy as you want to be. We're going to collect them all. We'll head to our paint station, and we'll show you how we're set up and organized so that we can get all these painted and let them dry and not get confused. This material only needs 1 coat of paint to cover, especially these, because this one gets installed right on the finished flooring. And because you can never come afterwards with a paintbrush and get a perfectly straight line without getting paint on the flooring, better to paint it now, then install it. All right, important to note. This rise and run is different than this rise and run. We can put the risers on, but the last riser can't be installed until after the floor goes on. So we install the flooring, we can put the riser, problem solved. But over here, I'm gonna have a nosing. Now, this one involves a track. Before I can even begin to put down my flooring, I need to know where this location is. We also have to consider the riser. Our riser actually fits inside, just underneath this plywood. And for us, that's perfect, because in this case, we have this return. So what we want to do is take this measurement for the nosing, measure it up perfect, with the nosing making contact with the riser. And because we have that much overhang, we're going to install that, put 1/8 of an inch shy of that. Our next step is to cut flooring. So the best option, whenever you're going from flooring to landing, change the direction so that the grain is showing, joint lines are contrary. If I line it up perfectly and it's all level and square, and then you're walking along, you've got the lights off, it's late at night, you can't tell where the stair is, okay? Oh, like a glove. This is where it gets interesting. One of the benefits of WPC flooring, it has a little bit more flexibility. The SPC flooring, you can't uninstall and reinstall. But this one, the very nature of this bad boy, that is pretty darn beautiful, Matt. Now we just build back the same way we pulled it out. Because when the door gets installed, we also have a piece of trim molding going across the front of the door. We have Mercy over here. Here, this is where this pencil line has got to be perfect. Might as well just finish off the other landing while we're thinking about it. There's my flooring line. Taking the measurement from finished profile to my line. Now we got our flooring in, we can actually install our risers. We've got our boards, they're numbered, number 11. We're gonna confirm the orientation because we had angles to deal with. That's gonna work out great. We are going to take our PL Premium and we are going to create a solid straight line across the bottom. We don't need much here, all right? Just a little, keep the tube almost square to the material, and then it just gives you enough to get the job done. We're gonna go with 4 shims as a rule. We're gonna put one about 3 inches off. We wanna put a little dab, will do ya. One here, one here, one here. We're gonna set this up gentle. We're gonna use the square, align it, and if we don't need shims, great. We're gonna take our staple gun, and remember, the tread is a 1/4 inch thick. It's not very thick, but we're also adding 1/2 inch plywood. So we've got room to maneuver. So make sure you're stapling beneath that 3/4 inch line. This is a crown stapler. Crown staples are used whenever you're putting on a thin material because the head of a brad nail will not stay there. Get right into your corners. Keep everything nice and square. We're gonna come back, double check. That's about as solid as we're gonna get. This one's actually nice and straight. Okay, we don't need to add shims at the top. Our nosing comes down at least a ½ inch. So we're gonna staple right across the top, hold that gun upside down, and just to be sure, we can take a piece of scrap material and we can put it across the face of that. That is within the realm of awesome, and that'll be basically our finished look. Loving it. All right, a little blob will go a long way. Now in this case, we know that the top is gonna be an issue, so we're gonna press it. We're gonna open it up on purpose. We're gonna take our shims. We're gonna go from each side. All right, and this is very important. We wanna put our shim right in the middle of the goo, and then we wanna close it until we get that nice square. That's the spot. And then we're gonna take our staple gun. We're gonna fire in the top part. We're gonna go to the other side. Same thing. Find our glue. By setting it in the middle, we get glue on both sides of the shim, right? We're gonna make sure that we're in there nice and tight. Now, if I find myself popping through that surface too easy, like over here, it means the pressure on my machine is too high. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna go down and dial back the pressure a bit because I'm finding my staples popping through a little bit too deep. That's much better. Instead of using the square, I wanna think about the nosing, all right? I want this to be straight across. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my shims now, find my adhesive dollops, shove them in there, and go to straight, okay? So I'm gonna push this hard and push these down until there's resistance. And now I'm gonna nail those in. We wanna get rid of these. I am tacking it down with this gun right now. Once I've got the stairs built, I'm gonna come back with wood screws and use a mechanical fastener. We should be somewhat square here. We should be very straight. That looks great. I should be straight across the back, straight across the front. That's the goal, more than anything else. And then the nosing will take care of all the other inconsistencies. Well, now that Matthew's back, he's gonna help me out. He's gonna cut the rest of these, the tops. I can continue to install risers while he's working on all that out. There we go. We just got a few done, but it's starting to look like a staircase. One thing you don't wanna do, you don't wanna get so far ahead that the glue dries before you get your top on, because the corners could stick out, like there's still some flexibility here. Remember, one of the goals here is to take this plywood and create that straight line. You want a straight line because then when you come with your tread, you can template it with a straight line. You don't want to be scribing and dealing with edges. That's just too much work, right? All right, so now we're prepped for the top side. We got to do the bottom half of the stairs. By the time we come back to lunch, everything will be set up. All right, now it's time to do the dry fit on all of our stair treads. We got a special tool for that, actually. This is the Stair template tool. Let's talk about how we set this up. These tape numbers represent our tread. This set here is 36.5 inch. The other set is 36.25. We're gonna work on the largest stairs first. And then if we do make a minor mistake, we're not happy with the gap, we can then use that for the shorter stairs later. So if you have a staircase that's old and it bows out in the middle, do your dry fit on the middle steps first and work your way down. That'll give you an opportunity to get comfortable with the tool. This can loosen up and adjust. So we're gonna push it into the corner. We're gonna slide this into the corner. And then we're going to tighten this and tighten this, okay? So I like to work with only one joint on the bar and then each of these. Now that is set. I have a template. I can walk this down, set it on my tread, tape it in place, and then mark it out. We're not scribing, okay? We are actually just cutting an angle. Whenever you draw a line, you want the blade, and I'm talking about the carbide tip itself, to touch that pencil line. Then we're gonna come up here and check up here. I'm obviously cutting too much, so I'm off of angle. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this out. We'll go to a full degree, back to the beginning, okay? There we go, okay. Same thing, we'll start at 0, and we'll see how we look. I'm thinking I'm good. There's something very finite about making that cut. Next cut we have to do is the rip across the back. But to do that, we have to take a measurement on the actual stair. Let's go take a look. The product itself has a 3/4 inch depth on the nosing. So in order to get the proper measurement, we want to actually measure to the thickness of our riser. This floating piece will get compressed later. So we're going to measure where we've stapled. We're going to go set up our table saw with a little bit of mercy, because I would rather in this situation cut twice, all right? And it's easier to come back and then just tighten up the cut. But we're gonna do a dry fit with a deeper profile than we're expecting, just in case we made a mistake. All right, now I'm just using a few pieces of scrap wood to prop it up. so that I can rest my tread on the stack of wood, using this against the guard, and everything's nice and stable and square. All right, drum roll please. The other thing we're checking here is that the nosing at the bottom is making contact with the riser, and I'm loving that. I don't think I have anything more than maybe one sheet of paper. When it comes time to install this, we need adhesive right here, because this 3/4 that sticks out is unsupported, and we don't want to rely on this core of this PVC. So we're going to put an adhesive, polyurethane base adhesive right there on that edge, and that'll give us transfer of load from here into the riser. And that is where we're gonna get our strength from. Okay, so this one's done. So we finished all of the dry fit. Once we got into the rhythm of cutting the depth first, it was a game changer. But all in all, pretty darn happy. Now, obviously this is not a finished job. We still have to put on our baseboards, and we have to do some caulking work. Before we do caulking, we're gonna add our baseboard. We're gonna cut this on the 45 so that our contour follows around, okay? All right. There we go. This is all pre-painted. Trying our best not to get any of these nails near the ground. When you're working with trim, you're following the top, the profile line. So this is the line that we're creating. And the way we do this is we take a full piece of baseboard, and just for simplicity's sake, I went with 1 inch from the profile edge, and I ripped the whole baseboard down to create a smaller piece. Because I don't want to have a huge piece of baseboard on that stair. It's just a little obnoxious for me. So before we start, we take a baseboard, we draw the line for the height, we take a little cut off, and then we're just tracing out all the different profiles, and we're finding all these angles. We then translate that cut 45 degrees, and we add a piece of cut 45 degrees. We cut that piece. So we're doing that, we're doing this. We're dropping this in, and now we have a piece of baseboard that's also a thinner trim profile. That way when we nail it all in and we add some putty and caulking and all that kind of thing, it looks like the stairs have been set into a finished piece of wood, because you won't see any seams. We need to use the brad nailer to get all of these nice and tight to the wall, and then you can have a really nice finished look. Now we are going to be doing the flooring and everything down here later, so what I'm going to do is just nail that little block on, so it protects this edge from damage. And then when we get that floor on, we'll be able to do something very similar here. Right now, I just got to finish nailing on the rest of my baseboards. All right, guys, now it's time to do the caulking. I want you to use crown molding from DEP. This is a 60-year product. What I want to try to do is get a nice square edge. I don't want to use a finger and have this big round goopy mess, okay? When I'm putting the caulking in, I'm going to have the angle pointed down. And so I'm trying to push material instead of sitting on the surface. I want to push it into the back. Close my angle right into that corner, and I'm gonna like overfill. We'll do the other side while we're here. Nice and overfilled. I love this gun. Great for DIYers, by the way. You guys might want to get this. Comes a little caulking tool so that you can get a perfect line. So I'm gonna have this real modern sharp angle, which is gonna be great. We're gonna do that to all of our risers. Anytime we have a gap or a shadow, we're gonna use caulking to fill it. In this case, I'm gonna go with a small radius. If you wanna be very consistent, then you want to use a tool in your application. They even got a scraper tool attached to the handle, so you can use this to remove the old crusty caulking. Okay guys, now for all your holes from your nailer, you want to use a wood filler, you want to overfill. Again, this is the secret to getting a really good look. Use wood instead of MDF trim for that reason, because these are actual holes that need to be filled. When you work with MDF, you end up getting implosion sites, so the surface gets raised. We fill the hole, but we leave extra on the surface so that I have to sand every one of these locations back. And all these miter joints, I'm going to rub the wood filler in there as well. And what happens is, when I come back and sand this bad boy, that line will disappear entirely, and it'll look like one piece of wood. And we're just going to take our sanding block. I know that goes on looking sandy and all that, but it actually sands back relatively easy. All right, now you just want to sand it back till you don't feel any more texture. Resist the temptation to push too hard. There we go. Now we're going to come back, paint all that in. We still have second coats on all the walls, so we don't have to be worried about being perfect here. The whole point here is get a nice thin coat and really pull it out so you don't get brush lines. Okay, ready for the glue up. Step one in doing the glue up is to rough up the bottom of the stair tread. For that, we're using a 60 grit sandpaper. This is like a smooth plastic. Pressure sensitive adhesive works great on smooth surfaces, but it works even better on something that's been scratched up. So microscopically, you really want to have little fingers and little bumps so that the glue can grab really good. Let me just show you the difference between one that's been scratched up and one that hasn't. Whenever you're working like this, it's best to have a station set up like this. Every one of these stairs is numbered. We just go from the beginning to the end, but you can literally feel it and you will get residue. All right, so I'm gonna finish doing this. All right, so now we're gonna talk about the star of the show. This is a adhesive that you can apply with a trowel, or you can even use a roller. This particular product will dry 10-15 minutes, and it's tacky to your touch. And then it's good to install your flooring for up to 8 hours. As a homeowner, you're not rushed. You can put the product down, you can finish going down the stairs, wait about 10 or 15 minutes, and then you can start working your way back up. And you don't have to worry whether or not the product is still gonna have a good bond by the time you get here. Now, installing the treads is only a couple of steps. One of them is, of course, to get the product on the tread, okay? And there's a couple of ways we can do this. One is just a little bit of a dip, all right? And that can take you forever. Or you can get yourself something from the kitchen that'll make your life a little easier. A little spatula. It is amazing how many times you will find a solution to your renovation project in your kitchen. Now, the adhesive action on this product is pretty amazing. And what we don't want is to have too much left over that we have puddles. And this trowel has got a unique shape, a little bit of a rhomboid action, so it gets into the corners really easily without getting it all over the place, you see? It's designed so that you can really isolate a corner. Okay, now that the stairs are done, and if you're wondering why am I using this glue instead of a PL Premium or something like that, the answer is that I don't want to use PL Premium because instead of just adding a few strips and then having 10% of the tread embedded in adhesive, I want to get closer to 90. 90% is really nice adhesion here. That protects it from ever ripping off or sliding off or lifting off. It also is the difference between if you put pressure on a stair where there is no adhesive, that means there's a void because that adhesive will drive with ridges. And then your stair is going to have lots of flex and movement. And then any other work that you do in the way of like doing your caulking and paint work is going to be very susceptible to cracking. And you're going to feel that movement underfoot, and that's an awkward thing to feel when you're going up a set of stairs. The second half of this install is doing like a tile installation called back buttering. So what that looks like is this. We're just going to take this product and run a real thin, smooth layer of it over top of like around 90% of the tread, forcing it into that microscopic sanded grit that we just created, okay? And what that's going to do for us is guarantee that when this is tacky and that's tacky, they got a great bond. Now, we let all that dry up for a little bit. Nice and tacky. One more thing. The last 1/16 of an inch, what we want to do is have a little bit of this lovely PL Premium. That's just enough so that I can grab the tread like this. I'm not using my thumbs to hold it. If you try to hold it with your thumbs, you're done. So you want your whole palm cupped around that. This allows you hover, slide it in, put down the back. Whoo! Number one. Now, because it's a pressure sensitive adhesive, I want you to go out and buy this. This is a great little roller. It has a lot of uses, but in this kind of a scenario, really it's all about putting your body weight on it. The whole point is this is a pressure sensitive adhesive. So now, lift it off, which makes it safe to walk on immediately. All right, next tread. And this goes really quick from here. All right. Oh God, that feels so solid. Oh, and if your staircase is open on the one side, we didn't forget about you, and CALI's got you covered. The tread comes pre-mitered and comes with a return piece that can cap either end of the staircase. And to finish your stair, you cut your depth, you cut your length, and you glue on your cap. And you're all finished. Time to take care of all the little fine details. So now we're going to be dealing with caulking. So we've got a few different options. These have an embossing on them. If you just caulk an edge and you put a nice little fine bead and you fill that gap and you can wipe that caulking with your finger and you'll see that's what happens. So then you got to wipe it again and then you got to wipe it dry. And you're going to go a few times because you've got to get all of that off of there, but it gets in the embossing. That'll slow you down. That's going to cover you in the caulking and make a great big mess everywhere. So the other option you have, grab yourself a brand new roll of tape, and then you can do this. And you can make a big smear of it. I would probably go 2 runs, make it nice and tight, and then you'll peel the tape. And you may or may not be successful. Like for in this case, right in that corner, I still have a gap. Or you can follow my advice and actually get this caulking gun. This one, the wood is all twisted, so we couldn't get it in right. And we're gonna load up that material here. The tool comes with a very small curve, kind of like a finger. And you can use that to get rid of all the extra caulking. But you see how this rubber, if you're pushing down and over at the same time, the caulking doesn't get caught in that embossing. And then we're going to take the square tool and then we're going to really clean it. That is exactly what I'm looking for. What we're doing is we're guaranteeing that everything that's going to be a shadow is filled. Now I can knock off the rest of these stairs in quick order. With this tool, I can caulk the entire staircase in about 30 minutes. And that is nice because then we can let it sit for about an hour for all that caulking to dry up. Come back, pull out our paintbrush and do all our final touches. This stuff here, all-purpose wood filler. This is actually still good for laminate floors, vinyl floors, any kind of flooring. It's very creamy. We're gonna just check the colors because I think we're gonna use 2. I'm gonna take a little bit of this one and a little bit of this one. We're just gonna mix this until it looks like it's a little bit more consistent with the actual wood. I'm actually kind of fond of that. We can get this filled, not just in there, but like flush, okay? If you want to take the time, you can actually go out and buy yourself really thin little markers, same colors. And you can take a marker that's just a touch darker and do a couple of little lines in it, and you can create the effect of that grain going all the way in. And the other thing is we are going to come back and do a little bit more paint work. So if the wood filler is up on the wall a little bit, it isn't going to matter. Okay, we'll paint that back in. So we're just getting rid of our little gaps. This particular product does take a lot of filler to get in because every time I push it fills that hole. Oh yeah, baby. Okay, so let's go talk about nosings now because we have 2 of them to do. We want to be able to set this on this track at the right depth that it engages the teeth, and I get about a 1/4 inch of coverage on the floor. And that's what we're gonna do. Now, because I am very particular, I'm also gonna put a little bit of that PL Premium on the front of this nosing. So that edge down here will actually make contact with the tread riser as well. We're going from stringer to stringer. Down here, things are a little different. On this side, the stair nosing slides right over and makes contact with my trim. And we measured that out in advance. That's nice and clean up against the wall. We don't want to try to bring the trim back. Now over on this side, make contact with the wall, and we're gonna notch this right here so that that goes all the way up to the other stringer. So what we have to do now is identify exactly where these details are. And we're gonna use the scrap piece here as a template. Because it is a little bit tricky. Oh yeah, that's nice and tight. Then I can measure from wall to stringer. That is really close. I like it. Next thing we do, we cut in our template. That works out really good. Now, the only thing left to do is to mark where our track goes. Simpson strong drive. Okay, 1.5 inch screw. The reason for that is because it has a nice flat washer looking type head. If you use a regular screw that has like a pan head and you break through that plastic trim, you have the likelihood of it not going down far enough, going too far, or breaking through, or being raised proud, or whatever the situation is. Because this is hollow in the middle, there's lots of room here for my screw head. I'm going to pop this down into the track up against the line that I've already established. Because of the nature of the washer head, I can't over tighten them and bust through the plastic. All right, all I do is create compression. Solid. Snug as a bug in a rug. When you buy these products, these are also CALI risers. They come in 6-foot lengths. And if you're lucky, your stairs are exactly 3 feet, so one piece does 2. But for me, I had to buy 2 of them because my stairs are 36.5 at the bottom and 36 up here. So I was gonna come up short, which gave me the cutoff so I could do the templating. Because these snap straight down, I can't put the adhesive on first and make contact. Do the adhesive after the fact. That is nice and solid. Now, to get rid of that squeak, that's what we want the adhesive for. Just the nature of these. If you did all of your stairs with regular flooring and then this piece of nosing, you're not really saving any money. you're adding a lot of frustration, a lot of moving parts to every step, and a lot of risk of trip hazard, okay? So only use them where you have to. And then we're gonna come in here like this and treat this like a caulking. Now I'm gonna wet my finger and smear that in, knowing that it can be painted. Now that is a polyurethane adhesive. Now for good measure, while it's drying, visual confirmation that we don't want to be walking on that. This requires a little bit more finesse because you can see this joint as you're going up the stairs, okay? I'm going to just tape off what I consider to be about a 32nd of an inch. Okay, we don't need to get the glue on the entire thing, okay? Just where the traffic is gonna be. The good thing about this material is it's about the same color as this flooring. So it will be somewhat invisible even after I'm done with this. Now let's take it off. You tell me what you think. And that is structural adhesive on the nosing. Perfect every time. Set your watch for about 2 hours. We're good to go. During that time, I am going to pull out my paintbrush and do all my touch-ups, and then I'll be able to show you a finished set of stairs in just a second. The only downside to this whole process is that when you go to do the finished paint, we're going to be cutting in right onto that caulking line. And if you don't have a really steady hand for painting, you're going to have to tape all this off. Or you can come along afterwards with a little bit of acetone and a knife, and you can clean it all up. I find it's just easier to paint. But that's because I've been using a brush for a long, long time. You don't use a lot of pressure on your brush. Get the tip into that corner, not too much pressure, and you just run it along, okay? If you didn't go down far enough, you can always just go again. Because we're all caulked to the stair. If you get a little bit of paint on your stair, no one knows the difference between whether that's caulking or stair, as long as it's a straight line. So you can fake it. Less is more. Try to get the paint in the main area first, and then you go back for your cut-in. And all we're doing is eliminating that little white line, turning it the same color as the paint. There's a little bit of that glue. Look at that, it's gone. People can see underneath the nosing because it finishes tight. So you want to actually cut that line as well. Just take your time, and you can have a great paint job too. All right guys, there you have it. If you like watching me turn something old into something new, subscribe to the channel. Cheers.